Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Dave Guadrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial. It is Canucks Conversation, and Harman, I can't remember the last time we did an episode. It feels like with this Family Day long weekend, the little pause in the NHL schedule, it feels like we haven't done a show in a while, but we're back today. How was your weekend, your last 5, 6, 7 days? How long has it been?
Oh, and Harman's mic disconnects, so right
It's
back
like we
to
never left.
it's like we never
left. It's like we never left.
But no, I mean, I've just been so jacked up about this tournament. It's fully captured my attention. It's been so long since we recorded a show that we didn't even get an opportunity to talk about the first time Canada and the U.S. played on Saturday, which was just electric. And now that we've got a rematch for tomorrow, I'm just so pumped up about that.
Okay, now I said I was going to be up north, and I don't have photos, but I watched the game outside around a campfire, and that's actually why we were a little late starting today. I was cleaning my laptop because I didn't realize there was a bunch of ash in it because I used it as anyways, you don't need to hear the whole story, but it was really fun. Built an outdoor rink, which I've never actually had to do. I remember telling you that last year I skated on an outdoor rink for the first time because Trout Lake froze over. But that happened because it was cold and there was no snow. So the whole lake was just beautiful. Like, it was so easy to skate on. It was great. But this was like a snow-covered lake, and it's pretty remote. There was nobody up there that had built an ODR out there. So future brother-in-law and I were shoveling that lake, and we were out there for a few hours just to create the rink. But it was so much fun. It was so much fun. But that was the first time I've ever had to do that, and it was not for the faint of heart.
That's unbelievable. I just love the image of. I can also imagine quads given the way that you run the Nation Network. You probably found a way to get your future brother-in-law to do like 60 to 70% of the actual shoveling.
Wow, catches strays here. No, I was yeah, he did most of the shoveling. I did more the brushing.
I called it.
They're two different jobs. A little more finesse is required. But I shoveled too. I shoveled as well. It was fun. It was fun. It was good. It was really cold though. Like, it was like -20 when we were up there. So I was cold, but by the time we were done, that's the thing. We were sweating so much. Like, I was down to like just one shirt and I had like 4 layers on. I was not having it. It was very, very cold up there, but it was a lot of fun. Wouldn't change it for the world. Had a good family day weekend, had a good little reset, and we did some evergreen content yesterday. Technical producer Jacob Lazar is the brains behind that evergreen content. And you know what? We give him a lot of crap on this show. Round of applause for Jacob. Did a fantastic job. Fantastic job with this evergreen content. And obviously we give him a lot of we give you a lot of crap in good fun and with lots of love. But you really, really did a great job with that evergreen content. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and all the viewers will be able to see that on our YouTube channel probably in the next week or two. We're gonna launch it. We just did a bunch of different trivia, some other games, got some other personalities in there mixed with we had Tyson Cole, who has done a lot of writing and is Quad's right-hand man on the website. We got him in front of the camera. So it's going to be a fun time. And we hope you guys enjoy the content that comes out in the next few weeks here.
Absolutely. Especially that one where I crushed it. I didn't do so well in the hockey reference stat sheet, but people will see it. Are we publishing that, Jacob, or is that going to be hidden forever?
Nope, that'll make it out.
Too bad. I didn't know who Christian Ehrhoff was, just looking at his hockey reference page. But the problem was I only looked at teams. Like, I didn't look at stats. I didn't use the hockey reference page to my full advantage. But I got it in the end. Took a while, but I got it in the end. Okay, people are asking why I didn't say it. Silly me. Harman, there is a lot to get to today, so let's get into it. Our opening segment today is brought to you by Toyota Pacific Dealers. I want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X is packed with all the things you want in an SUV, like the room to fit all your family, friends, hockey bags, and whatever else you've got. And of course, the BZ4X is backed. See, that's what gets me. Backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. And now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X from 3.29% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. And we've got that contest going on as well. The grand prize of which includes 2 tickets to Rogers Arena for the April 6th game between the Canucks and Golden Knights, and 2 Canucks jerseys. If you want to win, check out the link in our episode description or follow Toyota Pacific on Instagram and Facebook at Toyota Pacific for your chance to enter. Contest open to residents of BC and Yukon of age of majority. Okay. And we got a super chat early, and I missed it because I was doing a big ad read there. So super chat, which of course will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation. This one from Elfrin Cliffhanger Canuck. Tomorrow's game wasn't supposed to mean anything. Thanks to events outside of hockey, the meaning of this game has changed drastically. Imagine that. You see all this, Harm? We were talking. Look, we've already done tariff conversation on this show. Those didn't follow through, but yeah, seriously, like you got the booing of the U.S. anthem, which obviously comes from the tariff conversation that we had a week or two ago. And yeah, this one does feel really politically charged. And look, people are already bringing it up. I'll say it. The Bill Guerin stuff that happened yesterday, he was pretty badly misquoted in that tweet. Did you actually read? Okay, you read the article?
I was like, this is not at all
Okay,
how.
So for those that didn't see it, and Harm, correct me if I misspeak, but the way that it was presented by, and what was the outlet? Who was the outlet?
Was it the Daily Beast?
The Daily Beast. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So
Double check that. I don't want to throw strays at it.
I think you're right. That sounds right. So the way it was presented in their tweet was like, USA Hockey General Manager Bill Guerin calls Trump's tariff threats and what else was it?
The 51st state.
Yeah, the 51st state. He calls it inspirational for the players. It's like, what? I clicked into it, and of course, that's not what he said. That's not what he said. And look, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, it's good what he said. But he was talking about how, like, yeah, like we can rally around different things that are going on. And I think he was more so talking about the booing of the anthem, which, like, players have said that they're rallying around too. Very, very different than, yeah, Canada becoming the 51st state. Yeah, of course we're playing for that. Of course that's getting the boys fired up. And anyways, it was just a pretty crazy misquote.
Yeah, I'm also one thing as a side topic I'll say is Brandon Hagel for PM. Seriously, the way that Hagel, I mean, just dropping the gloves right away with Matthew Tkachuk in that first game, but also just the war of words back and forth between the U.S. and Canada, where, of course, it came out that both Tkachuk brothers and JT Miller, their decision to fight was sort of premeditated in a group chat. And Hagel came back firing in the media, was talking about our physicality isn't for show. It's not for the cameras. We don't need group chats. It's for the nation. It's for our country. And then Matthew Tkachuk, I think it was, fired back saying he doesn't care what anybody on the outside says. But it's just like, I love that drama. I love that there are villains on both sides. And of course, as a Canadian, I love Brandon Hagel.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of that game, Canada USA? Obviously, the fights to start it out were just, the entertainment value is through the roof right now. And also, like, there's also this aspect. MLB spring training hasn't started. NFL season is done. What was the NBA doing? Like an all-star game?
Oh, and their all-star weekend was horrendous.
Just like their product. The NBA sucks right now. The NBA is awful.
That might have been like the worst NBA all-star weekend ever. And like TNT is losing the NBA broadcast rights, and they didn't give a damn the whole weekend. Like, I'm pretty sure guys were like just mailing it in. I think Shaq might have like swore on live TV and just didn't care.
Wait, they're getting rid of like Shaq and Chuck and Kenny?
Yeah, the whole TNT. I think they might be keeping them on with the new broadcast deal, but TNT is losing the rights, and they mailed it in, I think, out of protest on their All-Star weekend. It was bad.
I think just from my conversations with friends that used to watch the NBA, Harm, and like they don't anymore. Like, I think the NBA is, I don't want to use the word dying, it sounds very dramatic, but I have like a lot of friends that are starting to be a little more like, okay, I'm starting to watch more hockey, not necessarily the Canucks, obviously, but I'm starting to really like the product that the NHL's putting out, and I'm kind of bored by the NBA right now. I don't know if you have the same experience.
I fully agree, and this is, like, to me, the NBA was always kind of like the second league I followed really closely, and I don't as much anymore because the game just isn't aesthetically pleasing anymore. It's just becoming, a lot of games are 3-point shooting contests where, and you understand it because teams through analytics realize that mid-range shots are inefficient, but now you've created a product where essentially, I don't know what figure you'd put on it, but 70 to 80% of plays are either a guy driving to the lane and only taking shots in the paint, like going for a layup or a dunk, or you're jacking up threes. And it's just, you've completely lost the mid-range game, and it's just, it's kind of boring to watch.
If they lose that panel too, like that's it.
Oh,
See you later.
In that show is one of the biggest things that for me as a casual basketball fan, like, drew me in.
Yeah. That's like the most NBA content I consume is like clips of that show on Instagram.
Yeah, so that's a big loss for them. But yeah, I mean, to have Four Nations at a time.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Where the sporting calendar is otherwise pretty quiet, this is going to definitely help grow the game. People love the violence aspect, and I'm sure that drew everybody in. Plus, how politically charged everything is recently, but also the hockey was unbelievable. Like, even forget the fights, the level of passion and buy-in from the players, the physicality. How many times did Connor McDavid get blown up? Or how many times did Sam Bennett blow up a USA player? Combined with the speed and skill, the defensive structure too, it was an unbelievable game.
Yeah, I mean, it sets up a really good final. Obviously, Canada's going to have Cale Makar back. USA isn't going to have Quinn Hughes. That's a big thing that we're going to talk about on today's show. We're going to preview the final more in depth tomorrow. It would seem like it's going to be a Jordan Binnington start, but I do want to talk about Jordan Binnington when it comes to this tournament and really what we've seen from Canada so far. At first, I thought he was getting a little too much hate. Again, if you lose 3-1, not really your goalie's fault. He's made some big saves. He made those big saves in overtime in game 1 against Sweden. And I think I said after that game that I thought he was maybe getting a little too much hate for his performance in that game. But I think you wanted to see him come up a little bit bigger for them against the U.S.
Yeah, the first Gensel goal in the first period was just after McDavid scores and you got some momentum, it was deflating. Now, both things are true where Binnington let them down in that game and Canada didn't create enough offense. They weren't able to build sustained pressure. I mean, in the third period when they were down 1, the U.S. put on a defensive masterclass on how to hold a lead. Their zone exits were so clean. There was no space for McDavid and McKinnon to wind up through the neutral zone, to build up pace. Their top 6 lines hadn't really built enough chemistry. So I get it, right? People were debating, like, anytime there was criticism on Binnington for that loss against the U.S., a lot of people would push back saying, well, how are you going to only score or how are you going to win when you only score 1 goal? And it's like, it's not one or the other. Both things were true. They didn't manufacture enough offense, and Binnington was decisively outplayed by Hellebuck. Now, I want to get your take on it, because I would have gone to Aiden Hill for the game against Finland and I get it, right? Like, that was a do or die game. So do you want to put a goalie in cold? But to me, putting Hill in, even if Hill was only mediocre or average, this Canada team should have still taken care of Finland. And the upside case, if Hill played really well against Finland, would have, in my opinion, Hill's the type of goaltender who has shown in the past that when he's hot, his ceiling, he can play at a star level. And to me, I would have gone to Hill for the Finland game, but I'm curious to get your take.
So would you have done it with the idea of, okay, if Aiden Hill plays great, we're going to start him in the final?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't know about that. It's such a short tournament. It complicates it so much. And look, it's not like me to not have a hard take where I'm like, nope, this is the correct take and this is the correct answer. I don't know, Harm. Like, I don't know what the answer is here. They started Binnington. They're going to start Binnington in the final. I could defend that. If they had started Aiden Hill and then said, you know what, Aiden Hill played so well that we're going to start him in the final, I could also defend that. And I could say, yeah, I understand the logic. I don't necessarily, and I know people are giving Jordan Binnington a lot of crap right now, and I mean, I was at the start of the show as well, but I really don't think that they made some horrible misstep or horrible mistake, in the same way that I think they made a mistake not bringing Logan Thompson to this tournament. Like, we can go back, it all goes back to that if you ask me. I don't know if there's a hard or correct answer. And I know that's a boring answer, and I'm not usually one to give a boring answer, but really, I don't know. I don't know the answer.
He's just been so painfully mediocre. And I get it where there are no guarantees that Aiden Hill would be better. But to me, looking at how vulnerable that Finland team was, especially on the back end, this was a conversation I had with a lot of my friends before the game. This isn't like revisionist hindsight, a hindsight take. The Canadian offense should have given whatever goaltender was in net, regardless of how well Hill or Binnington played. They were going to get enough. The goaltenders were going to get enough run support against Finland. They should have. If you start Aiden Hill and for some reason you can't score like 3 goals and you lose that game, like at that point, that's not on goaltending. That's on like as a skate as your forwards and defensemen, you should find a way to beat Finland regardless. And so to me, again, it's more about the upside case where, man, if Hill gets hot, he showed during his cup run and even after the cup run. Do you remember at the start of last season where for the first half, before I believe he got hurt, he was one of the hottest goalies in the NHL. He was riding like a 930 save percentage through the first 6 or 8 weeks. He's the type of goaltender that when he's on, he can play at an elite level. It's just the consistency aspect with Hill that can be problematic at times. And I would have rolled the dice using him against Finland and banking on, okay, if he plays well, go to Hill for the final. But it is what it is. You're married to Binnington at this point.
Here's a take I think I can get behind. This is from Johnny Gaudreau Forever in the YouTube live chat. He said it should have been Hill from the start. I can get behind that. That you start Hill and then decide later that you're going to go to Binnington. And that's with the idea that you think, as Team Canada, that Jordan Binnington is your best option. I think it was earlier in the tournament was the time to get Hill a start and just see maybe like, okay, is this guy hot? Like you're saying, Harm, is this guy at his best right now? Because if he is, we know he has a higher ceiling than Jordan Binnington at this point in time, at least. So it's interesting. And I'll also say this, to play devil's advocate a bit, I'll say this on Logan Thompson. Really love me some Logan Thompson. But at the end of the day, this is less about Jordan Binnington and this is less about Logan Thompson as much as it is goaltending development in Canada just sucks. Like Logan Thompson prior to this season is not a great goalie. You have a guy who's on a heater right now and having a great season. He's a top 5 goalie in the league this year. And I think that's reason enough to at least bring him to the tournament. But people are acting like they left this silver bullet at home. And I don't agree with that. I really don't. You have no indication that Logan Thompson was going to be phenomenal at this tournament. Yeah, he probably could have been better than Jordan Binnington, which is why I think ultimately it is a mistake. But these people that are out there saying, oh, well, if they have Logan Thompson, no problems for them at all. They're going to win this tournament super easy. I don't agree. I don't know if Logan Thompson was in net against USA, they win that game. Again, 1 goal. I don't know. Like I want to see Logan Thompson at the tournament. I have wanted to see Logan Thompson at this tournament, but this idea that, oh my gosh, this is an egregious error and it's going to cost them the tournament. I mean, we'll see Thursday's game. We'll see if goaltending is a huge story, but it's like you said, Harm. You need to score goals as well. The offense hasn't been fantastic. They had that great first period, and then they kind of just died down after that, which is a bit of a theme so far for this team in this tournament. But I don't know if I agree with the idea that, oh my gosh, Logan Thompson would have saved the day.
It was an egregious error to me to not have him as one of your 3 goaltenders.
One of 3, absolutely.
Like, Sam Montembeau's here.
For
why?
What?
I know he was good last season, but come on, he sort of came out of nowhere last season too.
And I will say with Montembeault, he was really good at the start of this year, and when they had the roster cutoffs, he was still arguably a top 3 Canadian-born goaltender, but he's fallen off so drastically since then that the whole concept of picking your team so early in the process really shows when it comes to a guy like Montembeault.
897 save percentage on the year for Montembeault.
Like he was rocking like a 930 through the first month of the season.
We were talking about him for the Vezina. I remember that.
Yeah, one thing I will say about Thompson that I'm sure factored into their decision making to leave him at home, and I don't buy this as a plausible as as a legit reason for why they should have, but I'm sure this factored in. He doesn't have much big game experience in the sense that he only has 9 playoff games at any professional level. That's NHL and AHL combined. He played 4 games for Canada at the 2022 IIHF World Championships, where he only had an .881 save percentage, and he's previously never represented Team Canada. So I'm sure that went into it, where he's not really a proven winner, not a big game sort of performer, and it's not so much that he can't do it; it's that he hasn't really gotten that opportunity. So it's kind of an unknown and a mystery box. Again, if you're picking 3 goaltenders, he should have been one of those 3 all day long, but that's something to keep in mind too.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point though, like Sam Montemol's never played a playoff game.
Yeah.
The last important game he won was like, I don't know, Pee-wee. And that's the thing, is it's not Logan Thompson versus Jordan Binnington. Maybe for the starters crease it is, but it is, like you said, it is just one of your 3 goalies. But again, they made that roster decision early when they had to, back in December. Okay. Do you have anything else?
Another thing too is it's unfortunate because it was too late. But imagine if Canada also had Mackenzie Blackwood. He's been phenomenal for Colorado. And again, I'm not going to criticize Canadian management for not picking him, because his success has been after the cutoff when rosters were already announced. But
he was on the Sharks when they were picking this roster.
Yeah, well, he played really well in San Jose.
Yeah, he did.
I know his save percentage wasn't great, but his numbers were pretty good considering the defensive environment. And since joining Colorado, he's got like a .922 save percentage. I imagine he's going to be a contender to make the Olympic team.
Love it. He should be. Like, yeah, we're not going to preview the Olympic team today, but I'm going to guess at least 2 of these goalies that are here at this tournament aren't going to be there next year. I think it's a safe way to say it. Okay. Elias Pettersson. Not a great tournament for him. He plays 3 games. He has 0 points. And his coach, the guy who was supposed to save the day, Sam Alam, benches him for the 3rd period. In Sweden's only win of the tournament was the game where Pettersson had the lowest ice time of any player in the game. Not great, Harm. Not great.
He looks slow. There's nothing dynamic about the way he plays, which is the same that we've seen from him in Vancouver. And even when you go back to the flashes he has shown where he's played well, right? Like, let's say the Toronto game, right before the Four Nations break, he had that gorgeous assist to Filip Hronek. Those plays have been at a standstill, right? Even some of his earlier assists and points that he's racked up, it's been from stationary positions where he's leveraging his IQ and his vision to execute those plays rather than moving his feet. He just looks slow. And when you don't have that speed, that's an issue I was talking to you about in previewing this tournament, is looking at Sweden down the middle. They don't have that game-breaking dynamic pace, the puck carriers. And in a tournament that's this tight checking, you're just not going to have time and space to cook. You're going to need to either think the game at an elite level and anticipate and be in the right spots, which is hard to do because everybody at this tournament is an elite player, or you're going to need those bursts where you can somehow separate the way guys like McDavid and McKinnon have, and of course Pettersson's nowhere near that. At this rate, he's not even a lock to make Sweden for the Olympics, right? Which is concerning. I mean, even this season, he may not hit 55 points this year. Like, it's rough. And another important takeaway from this tournament, I want to stop hearing people criticize and blame Rick Tocchet for Pettersson's struggles.
Yep.
Like that one bothered me for a while because, yeah, I can agree that overall is Tocchet's system and playing style conducive to creating a lot of offense? No. And do I believe that there's a possibility he's held this team's overall offensive generation back? Yeah, 100%. But with Pettersson specifically, there was a lot of talk about, well, Pettersson typically creates a lot off the rush. Tocchet's system is forcing him to play dump and chase hockey, and it was like I was just watching Pettersson going, even if he had Bruce Boudreau back, And Bruce said, create all you want off the rush. Pettersson can't beat anybody up the ice carrying the puck. So how is he going to create off the rush? How is he going to create in transition? So seeing Pettersson play for Sweden in an environment away from Talkett proves to me that coaching isn't the primary issue here.
If we're talking about concern level among Canucks fans, right? Should Canucks fans be concerned with this tournament? I don't think the answer is yes, because, Petey didn't perform and this was a chance for him to rebound, get his confidence back. I don't think that's the reason it should be a concern, because really all we saw is the player that we've all seen for a while now. I think the concern for me and the concern for Canucks fans should probably be that this theory that, if you just get him out of Vancouver, if you just get him away from JT Miller, if you just get him away from everything going on in Vancouver this season with the Canucks, the drama, all that sort of stuff, if you just get him away from that, get him back with his countrymen, get him back with his coach that he won an SHL championship with, get him back with that guy, Sam Alam, everything's going to be fine. That theory's dead. And I think there was legitimately NHL front offices, and maybe there still is, still are probably, that really believe that they can, if they get him out of Vancouver, if they bring him into their system, into their world, that he'll figure it out. And hey, maybe that can still happen. Maybe it can still happen, and maybe there's teams that are out there. But I'll tell you, if I'm an opposing NHL general manager, I am not bucking up for Elias Pettersson the way I might have, 3 months ago, if I was talking trade with the Canucks. I'm not looking at trading for Elias Pettersson right now. This was a tournament where I thought it could have been a chance for him to not establish himself, but reestablish himself, I suppose, to the rest of the league, and he didn't do it.
It's also so hard to pin down a why. Everybody's searching for the why, and it's so difficult to do from the outside. We've spent a lot of time dissecting the potential theory around knee tendonitis, but it's also hard for me to look at that and say, well, if he was truly hurt or injured, then why would he have played in this tournament in the first place?
Yep. Exactly.
Right?
It's not the worst case of knee tendonitis ever. I see people talking about the flu bug. I'm sorry, he was still the worst player on his team, even if they were all ravaged with the flu. So unless he got the flu worse than everybody else, and he's got the rarest case of knee tendonitis in the world, stop it with the excuses.
Well, also, we saw Alex Pietrangelo pull out of the tournament, where he was healthy enough to play NHL games, but recognized that I've got lingering things that I need to deal with. I am going to take this Four Nations off. That's why it's just so confusing, because to me, Pettersson doesn't physically look right in terms of his skating. He looks so much slower than he was 2 years ago. And I've assumed for a while that there is some level of injury impact involved, regardless of what he or the team says about him being healthy. And yet he plays in this tournament, so you have to kind of assume that he is at least close to 100%.
He chose to go. He chose to go, right? At the end of the day, he chose to go to that tournament, and he didn't play well. That's what it comes down to. A lot of Pettersson takes in the chat right now. I don't know what else to say, really. It was a disappointing tournament. This was a chance for him to reset, and I think the only thing that's really a concern is that maybe his trade value took a hit this weekend. You didn't see anything different, so it's not a concern oh my gosh, would you have liked to see him bounce back? Yeah, all of us would have, but I don't think you're surprised by what happened. I think if you're a Canucks fan, you are a bit worried that now the rest of the league has seen it on a different team.
I'm also so tired of the moral victories around his defensive play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we get it. He's good defensively. Yes, you didn't pay him $11.6 million to play good defense.
Drew O'Connor plays good defense.
Yeah, it's and look, it does matter in the sense that, okay, even at his floor, he's not losing you games, but come on, where's the ceiling? Where's even the midpoint level of his play? Yeah, it's just it's frustrating. It's disappointing for Canucks fans, and the more it continues in this direction, the more likely it is that this club will consider dealing him before his July 1st no movement clause kicks in.
What's a bigger risk? Holding on to him and this not turning around once he has that no move clause? Or is it no trade or no move? It's full no move.
Full no move.
Okay. What's riskier? Holding on to him and that full no move kicking in, or moving him ahead of the deadline, he goes and figures it out somewhere else? What is riskier for the Vancouver Canucks today?
I would hold him through the season.
Through the season?
Yeah.
Okay.
And make a decision in the summer.
And so what's riskier, going into next year or making that decision in the summer?
Also, you need to make a decision in the summer. Before July 1st, you need to be, okay, either we're sort of all in on this guy and we're convinced he can figure it out, or like that's a point where if you've got doubts, if you've got concerns, you got to pull that trigger before the player has all the leverage.
Yep.
And again, like I say this as somebody who for such a long time I've given Pettersson the benefit of the doubt. For so long, I've given Pettersson the benefit of the doubt, right? And even when we were having these conversations around should they trade JT, should they trade Elias Pettersson, they can only pick one to keep. You and I both agree that given Pettersson's age, he's in his prime. JT Miller's about to turn 32 years old. Probably makes sense to keep the younger guy in his prime. And I'll also say this: I surveyed NHL front offices. That was the consensus view.
Yep.
Even the front offices and the execs that like JT Miller as a player right now, like some of them would say, if I had a playoff run right now, I would take JT Miller. But if you're the Canucks, they're not cup contenders this year. You're building for your long-term future. You probably move JT and keep Elias Pettersson, right? So this is the perspective I've come from all of this at. But he needs to show something down the stretch. Like this is the audition. Like this is it. He's got 27 games in the regular season and a playoff opportunity if the team punches their ticket in to prove that he deserves to stay in Vancouver.
Here's the thing. It's been over a year now. Mike Lavalley in the chat pointing out that it's been 13 months. It's been over a calendar year of this, right? Last time Pettersson looked like himself was January. All-Star break hits. This is the Pettersson that we've seen. I look at this situation, and there's Rico Shea in the chat is talking about don't wait till the draft. Don't wait for rock bottom. He's going to devalue himself even more. I would be open to moving him ahead of the trade deadline, I think. And ultimately, this isn't revisionist. We were talking about, you got to trade JT Miller. But we also said, and you might want to trade both. And I understand it's scary, the idea of trading both, but I think it's becoming clear that the idea was, okay, maybe if you trade JT Miller, Pettersson, during that 10-game leave of absence that Miller had, 15 points. Maybe he'll figure it out once JT Miller goes. And I understand it's just a Four Nations break, and maybe he'll turn it on from now until March 7th, NHL trade deadline. But man, it is starting to really just look like this is a guy that this is just who he is at this point. And hate to say it.
I wouldn't be rushing to do it ahead of the trade deadline simply because I think there are so many teams that are so hungry for top flight centers that even with how concerning his contract looks right now, people would look at, like put it this way, right? Look at Pierre Dubois. Like everybody thought that contract was untradeable, and at the time, Pierre Dubois was coming off like a 40-point season, massive like $8.5 million cap hit. Not to mention the character concerns around how many times he asked for a fresh start and the work rate concerns, and the Kings still found a way out of that contract, right? So like the point I'm trying to make is now you're talking about a guy in Pettersson who, for most of his NHL career, has been a bona fide first-line centerman. He's got a 102-point season on his resume. Just last season, he had 89 points. There are going to still be teams, regardless of whether he figures it out down the stretch or not. There are going to be teams that come the offseason, especially with how many clubs are going to have cap space, they'll be willing to take the risk because otherwise, good luck finding a first-line center. Good luck finding a franchise sort of player through the draft, unless it's like on the trade market or in free agency. Those types of guys are impossible to find outside of the draft. Now, there's a chance he could burn you if you're a buying team. There's a chance you could acquire him and he doesn't fit out, and now you're stuck with an inefficient contract. But there's also an upside case where you were able to acquire a 90-point centerman in his prime.
Nar just threw this out there. PD or PLD on your team? Pick one.
Well, and look at PLD's figured it out in Washington.
PLD's playing Selke level defense. I might have to put him on my Selke ballot this year. PD or PLD, pick one. Cap hits too. At this point in time, PLD's the better player for the team. So, like, it's not even a question. PLD's the top line center right now.
He's been better this season.
I'm saying this as the number one Pierre-Luc Dubois hater in the world. Like, the point totals are there, the defense is there. But again, here's the thing. The ceiling, right? Like, at the end of the day, this is probably Pierre-Luc Dubois' ceiling, in all seriousness. Yeah. And Elias Pettersson's ceiling, what we've seen from him before at least, is much higher than this. So, you know, as we get a little more serious here, the answer still is probably PD. But I think that's what's frustrating to people is it's just, where is it? Where's that ceiling? Bring it back. And how do you get back to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you.
But here's the thing. And people are in the chat are like, you guys are rushing. No, go back and watch the January 31st emergency episode. Actually, I don't think we did one. The instant. No, it was. Yeah, it was. Instant reaction. All that content we put out when the JT Miller trade happened. Immediately, we were talking about the idea that, okay, this trade was made so that the Canucks could have some runway to see what Elias Pettersson looks like without JT Miller, right? If that was a concern, now it's not a concern. Now it's gone. Let's see what Elias Pettersson looks like. And hey, if you're sitting there saying, well, wait longer, wait till the trade deadline, wait until the draft, you can have that opinion. That's absolutely fine. All I'm pointing out is that at that time, we said now it's a chance to see how Pettersson looks without Miller, and if it doesn't turn around, that they would be looking to trade him. That's what Frank Saravalli said on this show at the time, and he certainly hasn't shown anything that makes you think, yeah, of course he's worth keeping to this point in time. And hey, it's February 19th. Maybe people can say it's too soon to be having this conversation, but honestly, it's just it's soft. It's you're watching a soft player right now, and that's not what Pettersson is. Like, that's not what Pettersson is. He's not a soft player. He's never really shied away from contact. He's always gone into the dirty areas. He's always cut into the middle of the ice. He's been a cerebral player throughout his career, and right now we're watching a shell of the player.
Yeah, I'm also trying to find the old article. I remember when Jim Rutherford first took over this team during either his first or second press conference, he was asked about the core of this team, right? Because this was a transitional phase where a lot of people were wondering, is this club going to rebuild? And I remember him one by one going through the different players that made up this core, and he was sort of giving them a vote of confidence, right? He was talking about how Quinn Hughes was basically gave him all the praise in the world, called him world-class defenseman, described Demko like a franchise goalie, then went to Pettersson, and his commentary was a lot more reserved, where it was more of like you've got the potential, but you've got to prove it. And I remember at the time being sort of surprised, hearing that he didn't get the same type of endorsement that Hughes or Pettersson did at the time, especially because if I recall correctly, that was, can't remember which season it was directly, but it stood out. And like the thing I've always thought about,
22.
Right. So in the first half, Pettersson had been struggling. At January, at that point, he'd started to really start producing again. And the message was sort of like he's still got stuff to prove type thing. The other thing I've thought about is, remember that Jim Rutherford, he had Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh. Like, that's the bar that he's consistently going to be looking for, is like the best forward on my team. And not just the on-ice performance, but even just your habits as a leader, your commitment to winning, how dedicated you are. I think we can clearly see, for example, like Quinn Hughes, when you look at how obsessed and how dedicated he is to his craft, look at the way he, through various stages of his career, how he turned his shot, which was a weakness, into a strength, his defensive play, which was a question mark, into like a high-end elite part of his game, how he continues adding things to his offensive arsenal and has leveled up to a Hart Trophy level. Like, he's cut in the same mold of Crosby when it comes to how wired and how dedicated he is to winning. There's also that question mark around Pettersson. It isn't just the on-ice results. It's Like, why haven't you leveled up? The talent is there. And remember when Patrick Alvin had that interview with Ian McIntyre in January that like everybody was talking about it. Alvin was implying that they weren't thrilled with the way Pettersson prepared himself heading into the season.
That much is clear. And I like that you bring up the Crosby comparison as well when it comes to what the bar is for Rutherford and for Alvin as well. Okay, Harm, this has been one big anyone else.
Like one more thing I'll say though, like the absolute best case scenario by a long shot is he figures it out down the stretch. Now, I'm not saying I'm very confident he'll necessarily do it, but even if you go down the path of, let's say he doesn't quite figure it out in the final 27 games, you look to move him ahead of the draft, this franchise is going to be in a really tough spot because how are you going to find like top two centers essentially? Mm-hmm. The team already kind of needs another high-end centerman. You trade Pettersson away, and of course you're going to get some valuable pieces back, but you're not going to get a number one center back. And so now all of a sudden you're going to in very short order have to replace essentially Pettersson and Miller, so that the team can contend during the remaining years of Quinn Hughes' current contract. That's an awfully tough task.
It's going to be really tough to navigate is the thing. Ultimately, it's not, like I said, we're talking about silver bullets. Not a silver bullet to just trade Pettersson and everything gets better. Certainly not. But at least we're going to have the conversation down the stretch. Okay, this has been a really, really long anyone else segment so far. It's been 42 minutes of the show, and somehow we haven't got past the first segment. In the second segment, I want to talk about Quinn Hughes, who is not going to the Four Nations Faceoff. Although that's what it seems like right now. Who the hell knows at this point? On Tuesday, USA head coach Mike Sullivan came out and basically said that Quinn Hughes is en route to Boston. He's on his way. He's coming out. He was not coming out. The rules were clarified a little bit more that they couldn't bring him up because they still had 6 healthy defensemen. Whereas with Canada, when they brought in Thomas Harley, they lost they lost Shea Theodore, and then they lost Cale Makar due to illness, so that allowed Thomas Harley to get into a game. That's not the case for Team USA. They have lost Charlie McAvoy for the tournament, but they still have 6 healthy defensemen. So I said this to you right away. Jake Sanderson, Noah Hannafin, lock your doors. Be careful out there. Look ways when you're crossing the street. Maybe hire a food tester. Don't take a bite of anything before someone else does it first. But in all seriousness, it doesn't look like Quinn Hughes is going to go, and it doesn't look like any of those guys are going to come out of the lineup. And ultimately, they're the ones that got them there, suppose, but they were a part of the wins, right? And I'm glad that they're not approaching one of these players, and maybe they will, but I'm glad that they haven't, and I'm not just saying this as a Canadian. I'm glad they haven't approached one of these players and been like, hey, can you just pretend to be sick so we can bring Quinn in here? Like, you're not going to do that. And I'm glad they didn't. Some rare integrity from the Americans. But anyways, Quinn Hughes not going to the tournament. He spoke yesterday about how he really wanted to go to the tournament, and then it came out today, Pierre LeBrun reporting that he was not cleared by the Canucks medical staff. So that was certainly interesting because Quinn was talking about how badly he wanted to go. And he even did say in that press conference yesterday, people didn't really notice this. He did say yesterday, in a perfect world, I think the staff here would like me to give it another day or two, but I really want to go. And he wasn't cleared today.
And I will just put it out that from our own Jeff Pettersson, he was not wearing a non-contact jersey at Canucks practice today. So he was not cleared to go to Boston for the Four Nations, but he is wearing a regular jersey at practice.
Yeah, although notable that he was wearing non-contact yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that is correct, yes.
Think about the jump where Quinn hasn't played a game in about 3 weeks. He is coming back from injury, and imagine immediately being thrown into a Game 7 Stanley Cup final type of environment. That's a huge ask. And look, I wanted to see best on best. I was excited when some of these storylines are coming out that Quinn might join, that he might play, because you want to see best on best. And even as a Canadian, you want to have the bragging rights of you beat the best possible Team USA roster. But there's also the other side of the coin where I'm not gonna lie, if he played in that tournament, every time Sam Bennett is barreling in on the forecheck, you're kind of bracing yourself if Quinn sort of gets hit, especially given how physical and nasty the last game was. And even if he was medically cleared, again, the second step, the most important one, is that the Americans would have needed another injury or illness for Quinn to play anyway.
Yeah. And that's what Quinn was saying yesterday as well. Not to mention where his injury is. So we know it's the oblique area, or at least I believe it is. That is going to hurt if you get hit by Sam Bennett on the forecheck, or Brad Marchand takes a jab at you or whatever. That's going to hurt. So I get it. I get it. And we should also mention, because I think the way this is being painted a little bit is like, well, the Canucks told him he couldn't go, despite saying before the tournament that it was his decision if he wanted to go. Pettersson, the agent of Quinn Hughes, said this to Pierre LeBrun. It was a very difficult decision. Hughes really wanted to join Team USA, but the reality is he still isn't medically cleared and likely wasn't going to play unless Team USA had another D injury or illness. Tough decision, but the decision has been made that he won't join Team USA. We should also mention that it sounds like Tage Thompson is making the drive over to Boston.
And Brett Pesce.
Flying. Not driving, flying. But they're going to Boston. So you've got those reinforcements. That's the thing. There's some confusion here again. Quinn just got back to Vancouver. He didn't spend his break in Vancouver, right? So you'd be asking him to get back on a plane to Boston with the idea of maybe not even playing because you don't know. Whereas Thomas Harley was on his way to Cabo, and then he took a plane to Montreal at the time, and he wasn't allowed to practice, but he was allowed to be kind of around the team off the ice, which is what he was. You saw him in the tunnel and all that. So he was around and ready to go, but for Quinn, who just got back to Vancouver, asking him to go and just be ready, I can understand that aspect of it as well, where, yeah, maybe that's not the best use of his time or, travel miles as well, right? The toll that takes on the body. So we're also not sure if he's going to play Saturday. That's the other thing about Quinn Hughes. After practice today, you can read about it over at Scenes from Morning Skate, where, as you said, Harm, Quinn was a full participant. Adam Foote talked about, and yes, it was Adam Foote. Adam Foote said he doesn't know what's going to happen when they report to the doctor and what we're coming back with, but they are, yeah. So basically, long story short, Quinn Hughes is not for sure going to play Saturday in Vegas.
Yeah, and that just goes to show if he's uncertain to play this weekend, tomorrow you're going to throw him into a Stanley Cup final type of environment. I can understand why he wasn't fully cleared.
Yeah, absolutely. He wanted to go. That's the other thing. He really wanted to go, so you feel for Quinn Hughes. We're going to preview the game tomorrow, and Quinn Hughes obviously won't be a part of that game or that preview, but I do feel for Quinn. He really wanted to go. He made it very clear that he wanted to go, so that really, really sucks for Quinn Hughes. We don't really need to get to our poll question because it was, do you think Quinn Hughes is going to play in the championship game? We obviously know the answer to that, but let's do it anyway. Let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by HSBC Rugby Sevens, where high-caliber rugby and the ultimate party weekend collide. SVNS is Western Canada's largest sporting event, and this year is the 10th anniversary of the event from February 21st, 23rd. BC Place is the place to be. Grab your friends and your best costume and come on down for the best party in town. Single-day tickets are on sale now. Friday tickets start from just $50. Okay, let's get to it. Pull it up, Jacob. I don't know what the responses were. And it was like this before the actual announcement, too. But 71% of people say no, Quinn Hughes will not play in the championship game on Thursday. And 29.1% said yes, he will. So,
yeah, I grabbed this screenshot as soon as it was made official that Hughes wasn't going. I made sure to go on and grab the screenshot before people started polluting it with no. Oh, obviously, no. Yeah, so this was an accurate representation from before the announcement was made.
Nicely done. You're on top of it.
Quads is the type to vote no after it's already been announced and say he was right. I called it.
Oh, did you see this? Thank you, Harm. You brought something up that I needed to get in. I know you read everything I write over at Canucks Army. I wrote 13 days ago, maybe 11, 13. Yeah, 13 days ago. What does a Drew O'Connor extension with the Canucks look like? Do you know what I predicted, Harm?
I don't.
2 years at $2.5 million was my final prediction.
Ah, well done, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when we had the conversation on the show and you were giving your vibes take. I was like, it's a pretty good prediction there.
Yeah, so take that. Anyways.
Could someone fact check this? I'm kidding.
No, it's true. It's true.
I believe you. I believe you.
I tweeted it. Do you have me muted on Twitter? Be honest.
No.
I tweeted it.
I will if the Flames make the playoffs somehow.
Okay. Let's get to anyone else. This has been one big anyone else, but let's get to the official anyone else segment, which is brought to you by our friends over at Greta. Folks, speaking of the game tomorrow, we are hosting at Greta a free event. Canada versus USA. You don't need to go buy your tickets. Just make a reservation. You text or call, book online, go to gretabar.com. Book yourself a reservation because it's going to be packed tomorrow. Harmon and I are going to be hosting. We're going to be having a fantastic time. Events presented by Fountain Tire, and we are super excited. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Greta Bar, YVR, it's the place to be. Remember, 5 p.m. puck drop. Our doors will open at 4 p.m., but also Greta's open before then, so you can just come in. Like, you know, I'm not going to be there sooner than that, but you do whatever you want. You come in whenever you want. Actually, I misspoke. Greta opens at 4 p.m., so come at 4 p.m., not a second sooner. Come at 4 p.m., 5 p.m. is when the game starts. I'm very excited to watch this game, Canada versus USA. I'm excited to hang out with the listeners, hoping to see Travis Wall, Jeremy Lee, all of the regular listeners. Now there's too many to name that have come and introduced themselves to us at these events, but you're going to be there. I'm going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, anyone else, brought to you by Greta. Come hang out with us tomorrow. It's free. Just show up. Just show up. We'll figure it out. Okay, and I'm still going to be giving stuff away. I give everybody stuff while we're there. Anyways, I don't even remember what I want to say in anyone else at this point.
Well, I've got something that I want to start with here.
Please.
I believe it was Nar in the chat earlier saying, are there any comparable players to Petey? Like elite at 20, washed by 26. I mean, we won't say that he's washed quite yet, but he's certainly trending downwards.
Sure looking like it.
So on Hockey Reference, you can use like a career they have a career comparison tool. And I went in and looked at some comps, and it's really interesting because a lot of the comps were guys from like literally the first year of the NHL, whose rookie season was them at like 29 years old, and their fall off 7 years later came in their late 30s. Like Newsy Lalonde and Joe Malone, who were like above point per game players at 29.
What's your point? What's your point? We're talking about the age, not when they started their career.
But that's the point. There's no guys that are similar ages to Pettersson that fit this curve. The closest one I found was Jonathan Chichu, but even that was pushed a few years back. His big year came at 25, and he was out of the league by 29. But I can't find anybody who came into the league at Pettersson's age, started on that trajectory as early in his career as he did, and then has now dipped to this point using this tool. So it's kind of crazy. Like we're looking at something that can really only be compared to guys from the earliest days of NHL history with any kind of clear or similar trajectory. It's honestly wild when I saw that.
Throwing out Jonathan Chichu comps for Elias Pettersson. I thought that was disrespectful at first. Harmon, did you know Jonathan Chichu scored 56 goals?
I do, yeah.
I did not know that. That's insane. I did not know that.
Yeah, Joe Thornton was a hell of a drug.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Well, thank you for that, Jacob. When you said it was guys back in the day, I thought you were going to be like, yeah, like he was great, but then he had to go fight in World War II.
Yeah, well, then he got
polio. Yeah, he was working on the family farm, and the cow bit off his thumb, and it was over after that. He was just, his wrist shot was never the same once he lost his right thumb. Anyways. Okay, we're off the rails. Is there anything else in the chat? This one from S. Little Boston. I'm starting to think about this as well. Will the Canucks extend Brock Besser, trade him, or let him become a free agent? I still say they trade him. They trade him ahead of the deadline.
I don't think they're good enough this year to use him as their own rental. In my mind, you can't risk losing him for nothing in the summer.
I agree. So trade him.
Yeah, unless he's willing to sign a team-friendly extension.
Is the team willing to give him a team-friendly extension? That's what I've started to think
about.
I've honestly started to think about this because it's like Brock probably doesn't want to go anywhere at the end of the day, right? Like, team that drafted him, he started to put down some roots here. He probably isn't, like, he's not like itching or telling them like, no, I won't sign. I think this might just come down to the Canucks don't want to sign something that is even less than what he'd get on the open market.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I would disagree if that's their stance, in the sense that if he wants to sign a 7x7, for example, I'll sign that if I'm the Vancouver Canucks.
Agreed.
Why not? Right. And that's still below market value, but it's also still 50 million in total value. Like, it's not nothing for a player to get. And so if he's willing to sign that type of below market value extension, I would definitely sign that ahead of the deadline. But if either the team or the player's unwilling to sort of compromise here, then in my mind, you have to move him ahead of the deadline. And that doesn't mean you necessarily give up on this season, because you can take those assets and try and flip them for other pieces that you're not going to go and acquire rentals, but players that can help you for multiple seasons and help you now and in the future.
Goal scorers get paid. At the end of the day. LC250 says Besser wants 8 years. Canucks want 6 years. They will end up with 7 years. I think, just like I said, a 7x7 is team friendly. Like, it's certifiably team friendly.
For sure.
He'd get more than that on the open market. Is there anything else in the chat, Jacob, that I'm missing? We looked at the PD comparables. We looked at how hard of a situation this is for Canucks management. We talked a lot about Jordan Binnington. I think it's almost time to close this show. This one went by fast. I don't know if you feel the same. This went by fast. It's crazy what happens when we're talking about Four Nations facing off. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, Jacob, do we have enough Family Feud responses? Because I realize tomorrow's a Family Feud day.
We do not, and I think part of that is we took some time off, so we didn't have a chance to remind people. If you have not filled out the survey, please do so. It's in the YouTube description. It's in the Facebook description. It's in the audio pod description. If you're listening on Twitter, just, go to our YouTube channel. Figure it out. Find the survey. We need probably about 35 more responses for tomorrow.
And there's over 200 people watching the show right now, just on YouTube. That's not taken into any consideration. The thousands and thousands of people that listen on podcast, the hundreds, sometimes thousands that watch on Twitter, not taking any of them into account. Folks, fill out the dang survey. And people in the chat are already saying that they're going to fill it out now. All right, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. Harmon, tomorrow is a coin flip between the USA and Team Canada. Should I save that for tomorrow? Maybe I'll save that for tomorrow. No, I'll do anytime goal scorer tomorrow. I'll do goal scorer tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, please don't bet on the outcome of
the
game.
You don't want me to?
The quads jinx.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Anytime goal score, fine.
But don't forget that on February 10th, Quads took Canada plus 140 to win the tournament. But I mean, hey, you could probably cash that out now and make some money.
No, I've got it. Hang on.
But yes, Quads bet from the February 10th show was Canada plus 140 to win. And that's right. Then you took Crosby anytime goal in his first game when he picked up 3 assists. So that was a tough loss. Where's
the Mariners on this? They're
there.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Well, you don't want me to bet on the Four Nations? Here we go. They look like they're done. Spring training started. They didn't do anything to address all the concerns in their lineups, but they still have better odds at winning the World Series than the Toronto Blue Jays somehow, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. But anyways, we're taking it early. We're getting it out of the way early. Seattle Mariners to win the World Series at plus 3,000 odds. Jays sitting at plus 4,500, which is crazy low. I know that, anyways. Okay, plus 3,000, Mariners, hammer it or don't. But that's our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. But at the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, and I can't emphasize this enough, please play responsibly. There's lots of stuff to bet on over at Bet365.
Bet365 thanks you for your donation there, Quads.
Nar in the chat, cut Quads mic. Rajcraft, Quads has stopped caring about his record. That one, put it at the bottom, Jacob. Put it at the bottom of the Excel spreadsheet, and in like a year, we're going to scroll past it and be like, oh yeah, I forgot we made this bet on February 19th. But yeah.
You know what though? Hey, if you preface that as, hey, this is a cash out bet, like I think the Mariners pitching staff's going to get them off to a really good start. They're going to be first in the AL West in like mid-May.
That's so generous.
And then you cash out and make some money. That's fine. They're not winning the World Series, and we both know that.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what?
I don't think they hold first in the AL West at any point. I'm so disappointed in them. I'm not. Yeah. Anyways, we don't need to keep going on this. But I
just bet on them missing the playoffs. Then
can you do that? No, you can't.
Oh, you can't.
No.
I mean, you could bet on you could bet on other AL West teams to make the playoffs. Thus,
all right. Athletics bet coming up next. We'll do it later. Let's close it out, though. Let's close it out there. Fun show, fellas. Fun show. We'll be back tomorrow to break it all down. Fill out that survey, folks. And we will see you tomorrow, both on the show and at the watch party at Greta Bar YVR. But for now, signing off for my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar. My name is David Grugelli. Thank you so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.